Welcome back to the Darin Show, everybody. No, these are not serving as Kurt Cobain glasses right now. These are glasses in celebration of a woman who wore these in the 60s. And today on the Darin Show, it's a movie review. And if you know anything about the Darin Show, you know that it has to be a movie that has something to do with music. And no, I have not started reviewing the Elvis movies yet. But that will come up for sure because I've seen them all. And, Rastabow. Anyway, the movie we're talking about today, and let's see, what are we going to call this? If you look elsewhere on my channel, I have book reviews that are music book reviews. So this is a movie. This is going to be a music movie review. All right, so... Anyway, The Wrecking Crew is a documentary that was put together by the son of one of the members of The Wrecking Crew. And if you don't know about The Wrecking Crew, well, let me just change glasses. And, woo, and I'll tell you. So The Wrecking Crew was a group of American session musicians in the 1960s and 70s in the Los Angeles area. And they played on hundreds, probably thousands of top 40 hits. What a lot of people maybe realize now, but definitely didn't realize then, is back then, whoever you saw, on the Dick Clark American Bandstand show or whatever like that, especially if you just saw like three vocalists standing up there and you heard all this orchestration coming out and you're like, who's playing this stuff? Most these people didn't play on their own albums because, as I learned from this Wrecking Crew documentary, if you brought in the band, like say, God, I can't even think of, because the Monkees is a famous band that everybody knows. They didn't play the instruments. The other people wrote the songs, played the instruments. And the Monkees were basically a Beatles knockoff. Now we're not talking about everybody, because yeah, the Beatles, they played that was the Beatles. But before that, I mean, when you go back to like the 50s, like it was always just people went into a studio. But to make my point here, there was a band that one of the guys that was being interviewed said the band came in and they worked on this one song like 7 hours or something like that. They bring studio musicians in and they did it in maybe 2 takes. They're like, oh yeah, we know that. They were just so good and just so used to playing together as a group and talented musically that they just played on so many hits. So I love this movie. It's called The Wrecking Crew. And so yeah, Tommy Tedesco was a guitarist and his son put together this documentary. Most of the players in The Wrecking Crew, very accomplished musicians, had backgrounds in jazz or classical music, and they had no official name. The name The Wrecking Crew and who came up with it is a subject of contention. Most commonly, it's thought that Hal Blaine, a drummer, used it in an interview with Modern Drummer, where he just happened to say, we're the Wrecking Crew, bring in the Wrecking Crew. In fact, Carol Kay, a very talented and famous bassist, she does not like the Wrecking Crew name. She said that somebody else made it up. They didn't think of themselves that way, and she doesn't like it. But Hal Blaine, the drummer, apparently used the term in an interview with Modern Drummer and kind of stuck from there. Oh, these guys were, a lot of times they were called like maybe ghost players. They became the most requested session musicians in Los Angeles, playing behind Jan and Dean, Sonny and Cher, the Mamas and the Papas, Frank Sinatra, Nancy Sinatra, Byrds. They played like the Byrds rendition of Bob Dylan's Mr. Tambourine Man. That was actually recorded by members of the Wrecking Crew, but they're not listed on the album, on the back of the album, so you think that the Byrds are playing that, and they're not. And then that means when they were on a TV show, they were playing which this happened all the time, of course, back then. They're always lip syncing. They didn't let the bands play live, but when they played on any kind of TV show, they were just playing the track, and they were sitting there doing this and everything, and it was the Wrecking Crew. So what's great about this documentary, there's interviews with a lot of the people involved. There's even Cher is in here talking about them. The Beach Boys, Jan and Dean, members of the Monkees. Because even like with the Beach Boys, especially, Brian Wilson was so talented, and he was writing stuff that even the professional musicians were like, wow, who did this? Several people said Brian Wilson's a genius. Well, sorry, but his brothers and cousins just weren't cutting it musically. LaCroix, if you're out there and you want to sponsor a music show. And I loved watching a lot of the recording sessions that they had, recorded video from way back then. So a lot of this was put together by the director from archive footage, but then also interview footage. Glenn Campbell, very famous country singer, country western, rhinestone cowboy, all that. He started out as a member of the Wrecking Crew. He's a phenomenal guitarist. That was the thing that was something a lot of musicians struggle with this. If you're a musician, you probably maybe know this. It's really hard to just play perfectly all the time and no mistakes. And you forget something or brain blip for a minute, But these Wrecking Crew people, just technically, they were just so good, and they just would lock into a groove, and they would throw down an album's worth of songs, and then Frank Sinatra would be, singing over the background or whatever. But their contributions were largely unnoticed. The public didn't know anything about this until drummer Hal Blaine's memoir came out in 1990 and used the term there. And so then a lot more attention followed from there. Leon Russell, keyboardist, he became a solo artist. He started out in the Wrecking Crew doing top 40 hits. Interesting fact, Hal Blaine, the drummer, was said to have played on over 140 top 10 hits and at least 40 number one hits. So he doesn't get credit as being in this band or that band, so he can't say, Elvis Presley had 40 number one hits. He had 40 number one hits, but, nobody knew. So this is the guitarist Tommy Tedesco, keyboardist Larry Knechtel, Earl Palmer, drummer, saxophonist Steve Douglas. Larry, the keyboardist, Knechtel, he became a member of Bread. Blaine and Palmer were among the inaugural Sidemen inductees in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2000, and the Wrecking Crew was entirely inducted into the Musicians Hall of Fame in 2007. So let me give you the back of the DVD blurb about this. So record companies happily supplied the public with new songs and musical groups, all packaged with artistic photographs and biographical profiles. Left out of the story was an important historical fact. The bands, in some but not all cases, did not play the instruments heard on their records. Instead, the task of recording the perfect tempo, pitch, and timbre fell to a small group of accomplished session musicians. Some of the tracks that show up in the documentary, California Dreamin', These Boots Are Made for Walkin', Be My Baby, The Beat Goes On, Good Vibrations. It features interviews with producers, engineers, the studio musicians themselves, and the artists that worked with them. It reveals the warmth and humor that allowed their collective talents to turn a simple chord chart into an international phenomenon. I like that also. There's a lot of famous bass lines or guitar licks or drum fills or whatever that you would recognize. And they're talking to the session musicians, the studio musicians, about how they came up with that. And they'll sit there and go, oh, well, they came in with boom, 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 boom. And I thought that it would sound better if it was like boom, 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 whatever, And that was on Beach Boys songs, Sonny and Cher songs. I think The Beat Goes On was definitely a bass line that was created there in the studio. So if you like music, and you want to get a little bit more information, get educated about it like I do, the Wrecking Crew is definitely a group of people that you need to know about, and the Wrecking Crew DVD from 2009 is definitely worth checking out. You're going to see Herb Alpert, Hal Blaine, Glenn Campbell, Lou Adler, Dick Clark, Cher, Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees, Al Jardine, Beach Boy guy, Carol Kay, Roger McGuinn of the Byrds, Bill Pittman, Leon Russell, as I mentioned, Nancy Sinatra, she talks about the recording for Boots Are Made for Walkin', Peter Tork of the Monkees, Tommy Tedesco, the guitarist, Brian Wilson, even Frank Zappa. So it's got a lot of talking heads in there. You all know that that's talking heads means you're on the TV screen and it's just a person talking to you, and like a news broadcaster, and that's where the talking heads got their name, right? Okay, of course you do. You're watching a music channel till the end of the review about the Wrecking Crew. You know that. The Wrecking Crew on DVD. Got mine at the library, but you can find it wherever you find your DVDs, or it may be on the YouTube. Check it out. Thanks for watching The Darin Show.